MVP.
Renters do every day. It's always been that way for me. Always been a get better mentality every day, grow every day, be a better leader every day, be a better quarterback every day. And when that rent's due, I don't plan on missing no payments. So.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 3 in the Keystone, episode 70. It's an Old City Sports Network podcast. It is the two-man weave tonight, myself and Al Ryan. We have teased it for weeks, and they have arrived. The guest twins, Saturday
during the day.
Saturday afternoon, Simone and Sienna, they entered the world. So shout out to Chris and Sarah. From all indications, two healthy babies, a healthy mom, and a stressed out dad. So
70, episode 70 being the number of days it'll be before we hear from guests again.
that might be underselling it a little bit, but we're hoping to have Chris back sooner rather than later, but we will find out. Like I said, I'm dealing with my first one now, and I can't imagine having two running around. So God bless them and everything that they're about to go through.
Yeah, shout out to Chris and Sarah. Maybe he'll be like I was in the beginning, just like the golf correspondent.
yeah, just chiming in once every couple of weeks with a segment or two.
So if you're listening, we're open to some co-hosts. Send us some emails, send us some tweets.
Yeah, get like maybe a little resume with some information about your credentials. I think we're with 70 episodes in, we can choose to be a little bit picky at this point.
No offense to our guests joining us later, but it doesn't take much, guys. So if you got a computer with a camera and a mic, just send us a resume.
But we do have an action-packed episode. Al did mention we are going to have a new guest for segment 3 tonight. I'm going to dedicate episode 70. Al, there's not a lot of 70s, but I'm going to go Jim Marshall. Do you know what Jim Marshall's the most famous for?
No, what's that?
He is the guy who picked up the fumble and ran the wrong way. I'm hoping that we go the right way tonight, just the two of us.
My 70 was that Logan Mankins, big grizzly bear for the New England Patriots.
You're going down into the trenches. I thought the 60s were going to be hard. 70 was a really, really tough one.
It's going to be rough. But then once we get to the 80s, we get all the diva receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So also that Bailey Falter was an option.
Oh, all right.
I felt like it might be a little bit of a reach to go that route.
Yeah, we're out on the Phillies for at least a few more months.
Absolutely. But before we jump into segment 1 tonight, I want to talk a little bit about SeatGeek. You've heard us touch on it for a few straight weeks now. Al, you used the code last week. You went to the Sixers game last night at romp over the Washington Wizards, who weren't playing very much defense. But if you go on to SeatGeek for the first time, your first purchase, you use the code 3K Podcast, the number 3K Podcast. It's $20 off your first purchase. Again, Al, you and your son went to the Sixers game for what, $32 total?
Yeah, not even really.
Yeah,
it was like $30.
It's a steal. There's no reason not to use it. If you've already signed up for SeatGeek, I know you have a spare email on site. You have a wife, a son, a daughter, a friend. Use that email, make a new account, and you still get the $20 off. So use the code 3K Podcast. Helps everybody out, especially if you're going to go to any sporting events, comedy shows, concerts. They have it all. So make sure you're using SeatGeek for all of those needs. Al, want to jump into segment 1 tonight? We're going to talk birds. The Philadelphia Eagles, I guess, squeaked by the Dallas Cowboys. It felt almost like Groundhog Day a little bit, where they get the win, but you really aren't feeling good about it. It's a 28-23 victory where, again, going into the fourth quarter, you kind of felt like the game was in hand, 28-17. They played a really good third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, man, they really just let up, and Dallas took it to them, and the Eagles just point-wise held on.
Yeah, Dallas just had they were doing to us what we'd been doing to teams so far this season, where all of a sudden the fourth quarter, they just held the ball. They had the ball forever in the fourth quarter in those, 3 drives that they had. The first one, obviously, to open the quarter, that results in them getting down to literally within inches of scoring until we make a game-saving tackle at the 1-inch line. But they just, I'm glad Chris isn't here because he would get mad at us. But I felt like it was almost like, yeah, the Eagles won, but Dallas kind of lost that game too. Like they had chances, they had opportunities, and football, like everything else, is a game of inches, and just an inch here and an inch there. They blew those opportunities.
But don't you think at this point in time that's Dallas's story?
It is.
It seems like that team can never find a way to get over the hump and win the big game. We've made the comparison over and over again on this podcast of the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia 76ers. And again, it just seems like that's the way it is. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback, but he just doesn't have the testicular fortitude to get it done in the big moments. Again, you look at those drives. He makes that in the first drive in the fourth quarter. He scrambles out to the left, looks like he's going to get in the end zone, gets flipped upside down, stopped at the 2. Then they make that pass play. Then you said they're inches away. The tight end is just a bit short. And, that's not on Dak per se, but you got to make sure that throw is a –
No, but wait, in that play, did you see that angle where it showed that there was in the center of the field? Who's number 3 on Dallas? Is that Tolbert? I don't know who that is.
It's either Tolbert or the little kick return.
Or Turpin, right? It's one of the two. Ran a pick route and was wide open. Like no Eagle within 10 yards of him. Right in the – like if Dak literally just looked straight ahead, he was right there.
Not only that, but I think the play that typifies Dak Prescott and all that he's doing, all that he's done is the 2-point conversion play. So the next drive, he puts a nice drive together. They go down, they score, and he turns the corner on the 2-point conversion, which would have made it a 3-point game, and he steps out of bounds. Yeah. I'm not saying it was an easy play, but it's just such a Dak thing to do to not be aware of where you are in the field and to step out of bounds before you get in there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He just seems like he doesn't have that big game moment in his DNA. And as an Eagles fan, we're thankful for that.
We really, really are. And it's just, for as a Cowboy fan, it's to be extremely frustrating to wonder, are you going to be able to get over the hump with this guy? And if you're not, what is the next step? Because again, you get yourself caught. I don't want to call him the Kirk Cousins zone because I think he's a little bit better than that. But again, you get stuck in the spot where he's good enough to get us to the playoffs, but he's not going to be good enough to get us anywhere further than that. Again, they dominate. I don't want to say dominate, but they outgained the Eagles 406 to 292 yesterday. The Dak threw for 375 yards. For all intents and purposes, they outplayed the Eagles, but they just didn't have enough to get over the hump, and that's just their story.
We have Top Shelf Sports Talk in the chat saying, as much as I hate Dak and Dallas, this wasn't on Dak in my eyes. I don't necessarily disagree that it wasn't all on Dak. I think that the combination of Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy is just a poisonous combination because Mike McCarthy is a notorious – he's terrible at managing a game clock, which we saw again on Sunday. And I think when you have the two of them together, they're just like – they both just don't know how to come up big. Dak, though, in the fourth, I don't know how you're not throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb more. I mean, the kid Tolbert had just as many targets as CeeDee Lamb did in the fourth quarter, and that's inexcusable in my eyes.
CeeDee Lamb's a stud.
He's unbelievable.
I to your point, Top Shelf, I don't think it's on Dak that game per se, but I think again we talk about the comparison to Joel Embiid, and it's just a matter of at some point this guy has to be able to take the team over the top, and he just continually falls short in those big moments when you want him to do it in the big games.
Yeah,
and he played well throughout, but it's just I need that little more if I'm a Dallas guy. I need him to take me over the top and win me a football game sometimes.
And I would love to hear from an actual like level-headed Dallas fan on what the opinion of Dak is in Dallas, because if you just look on social media and you look at Twitter, they love Dak. Like Dak can do no wrong. And to me, that's insane because what has he done? He hasn't done anything. So I don't know what the breaking point is for the fans in Dallas, but they sit there and they preach that he's just as good, if not better than Jalen Hurts. Like it's insane to me.
Let's flip the script and talk a little about the Birds because, again, it felt like a tale of two games. They come out right out of the chute, first drive of the game, they take it right down the field. Gainwell runs the touchdown in. They start the third quarter. They take it right down the field. Jalen Hurts drops an absolute dime on Devontae Smith in the end zone. Probably one of his best throws of the season, I thought.
Yep.
And then they followed up with another good drive where A.J. Brown gets in the end zone to put it 28-17. They felt like they had all the momentum. But you mentioned earlier, there's been 3 or 4 games this year where the Eagles have gotten the ball in the fourth quarter with a 7-point lead, with a 10-point lead, with a 3-point lead, and they've put together that 7-8 minute drive where they run the ball down your throats, and maybe they don't punch it in, but they put that field goal on the board to put the game out of reach, and all of a sudden, again, the Eagles got the ball with 9 minutes left, and you're getting it back, and there's 2:20 left on the clock.
Right. And I don't, in the fourth quarter, I don't fault them for when they took the ball over at the inch line. Right. That's going to be tough to get anything going from there. So they go 3 and out from there. But that second drive after the Dallas touchdown to make it 28-23, where they call that deep throw to Brown on 3rd and 3 is just so like, it's just another, just Brian Johnson just every week has 1, 2, or 3 plays where you're like, this dude is out thinking himself. And there were a number of plays again with 3rd and long where he's calling run up the middle, running back, a draw up the middle. And it's like, dude, why are we waving the white flag? We have weapons. Like, we have A.J. Brown for the 3rd and long, not for the 3rd and 3. It just boggles my mind when I see this stuff. And at some point, it's going to cost us. And I just hope it's not in the playoffs or, God forbid, if we make it in the Super Bowl.
So I don't love the play call. I don't think a lot of people did. But we talked last week that we thought A.J. Brown, maybe outside of Tyreek Hill, is probably the best receiver in the league. Even if the play call sucks, Jalen Hurts has to give A.J. Brown a chance to go get that ball.
Absolutely.
That throw was 5 yards out of bounds, and there was no chance at all for him to make a play on that. So I didn't understand why that throw was offline. Top Shelf Sports Talk makes a good point. Is it all Brian Johnson or is it Nick Sirianni? I agree with you 100% on that, because even if it's Brian Johnson calling all of the plays, we're in week 9 at this point. Nick Sirianni at this point had to have a talk with him and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is where I'd like to see an adjustment with the play calling. And we really, really haven't seen it. There's been no running game to speak of since week 3 or 4. DeAndre Swift, for all the talk about the games against Minnesota, the game against Tampa Bay, how we had a great running back, he has been mediocre, I would say, since then. I don't think he's ran the ball well. He definitely has been a downgrade from Miles Sanders, where he was last year at this point. So again, I agree with you, Top Shelf. It's Nick Sirianni has to take some fault. I'm fine with Brian Johnson getting 3 or 4 weeks to kind of settle himself in. But if you're not happy with the play calls as the head coach, it's your job to go in and take control and not say I'm calling the plays from here on out, but telling him the direction that you want to go.
Yeah, they're 18th in the league right now in yards per rush. They're only averaging 4 yards per rush, despite the fact that they're averaging 32 rushes a game. But now, obviously, a lot of that is Jalen Hurts as well. It's not all designed runs when you're talking about the Eagles. What really worries me, though, more honestly than the offense at this point is the pass D. I mean, we're statistically like at the bottom of the league in a lot of the passing defensive statistics. We're 32nd in opponent pass play percentage because they're just passing all over us. The yards per game, 257 passing yards per game. That's trouble when you're talking about a league that's predicated on offense, predicated on yards in the air. I know Kansas City, they don't look as sharp as they have in the past, but that's still a team that likes to throw the ball around. Dallas obviously just threw the ball around on us yesterday. Didn't Sam Howell kill us for like 5,000 yards twice already this season?
Twice.
So, I mean, that's something that I think needs to get fixed, maybe even more so than the run game.
No, I agree. I think if you ask anybody where this team needs to shore itself up the second half of the season, it's the pass defense. And I think you made a great point. And you see this sometime with certain teams. I'm trying to think what team it was a few years ago, but when you're elite against the run, and I do think this Eagles defense is elite against the run, you're going to see a lot more pass plays. And you're right. Well, they were the number 1 team as far as passes thrown against them.
Yep.
And part of that also is the fact that they've had the lead for so long, right? So when you have the lead, teams are going to throw the ball against you. That will obviously add up into a certain amount of yards. But they are, you said 32nd in pass plays against. They're 29th against the pass overall.
Yep.
So they've definitely struggled on the back end. I thought Bradbury had a terrible game on Saturday or Sunday. Saturday, like baby brain striking again. That pass interference, that's you can't have that happen.
Yep.
I didn't think he played well. Slay has had his moments. I think he's been okay for the most part of the year, but they definitely have really struggled on the back end. And that's something that they have to square up. It seems like the pass rush is starting to come. Hassan Reddick has obviously stepped up huge in the last 5 games. I think he has 7.5 sacks in that time stretch. Brandon Graham had a huge sack on Sunday on one of the Dallas drives. So the pass rush is kind of coming together. It's just a matter of that secondary. And, we talked in the offseason that they lost a couple guys back there, and that hurts. And the Avonte Maddox injury adds to that as well.
Yeah, I will say this about Darius Slay, though. He does live up to his name, Big Play Slay. He just seems to be in the area for at least once a game where there's some kind of big play that happens on the defensive end, because he was right there with Cunningham on that Dak, the back body drop on Dak.
Yeah. The question: do you think the secondary issues is because of the injuries? Injuries obviously play a part, but listen, every team has injuries at this point in the year, and there has to be some sort of correction and ways to get it. You still have your top 2 cornerbacks with Slay and Bradbury, who were both all pros last year. You just picked up a safety, so it's going to take a little time for him to get acclimated to what you're doing back there. And I think Blankenship has some moments. Like he's got a nose for the football. I just think he's a little limited in some of the stuff he can do physically, but I think he's kind of in on plays. So again, I think the injuries play a part, but you have to get over that. They can't be an excuse.
No, but we did come into the season knowing that we had question marks at both safety positions. We have question marks all at linebacker all over the field. Nakobe Dean has not shown anything.
Well, he can't stay on the field.
Right. So that's a problem, right? What do we say? The best ability. So Avonte Maddox going down, that hurts. These are all, but you said it best. Every team has injuries. It's next man up mentality. This is a Super Bowl contending team, and they have the best defensive line in football. So to me, that should take some of the pressure off, right, of the secondary.
Can I tell you one other concern I have on this team? And again, we're nitpicking. This team is 8-1 at the end of the day, right? It's just a matter of something doesn't feel right with the way that it's going on.
And without Chris here, we have to get our nitpicks out, because God forbid if he was here.
The disrespect.
Yeah, don't be disrespectful.
But I'm a little worried about the balance on the offensive side of the ball. And when I say balance, I don't necessarily mean run pass. It seems over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the only way that the ball is moving is A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith has flashed a play here or there, but I don't think we've seen the same Devontae Smith that we saw at the end of last year.
Yeah, no, and I would like to see now, because teams are obviously going to start keying in on A.J. Brown the second half of the season, right? They're not going to let him beat them anymore. So this is Devontae's time to step up, because I know you're a fan. Obviously, Chris is a huge fan. You guys have said he's a 1A. He's a 1A. I've always been a little more skittish, I think, than the two of you about Devontae. For me, it's more about his frame. I just think he's too small to really be a consistent number 1 guy in the NFL. He runs routes. He has hands, but he's just a small guy. So he does need to step it up, and especially now with Dallas Goedert out.
I looked at his game log from last year today, and I was trying to compare his stats to where he was last year. He is on a very similar pace to where he was in the first half of last year. He did not have a great first half of the year last year, but he really, really came on strong. I think he had 3 or 4 100-yard games in the last 5 games last year. So the second half was when he stepped up. So we'll see if he does that this year, because, again, I think he's on, he's got 42 catches. So he's on pace for 80, 85 catches, which in today's NFL, pass-happy offense without a lot of other targets. They don't throw the ball. It's A.J. Brown, it's Devontae Smith, it's Dallas Goedert, and Dallas is, of those 3 guys, Dallas is definitely a step below, Devontae and A.J. And now that Goddard's out, there should be a lot more targets that go his way, because there's not a pass-catching tight end on this roster at this point.
And there's no one in that receiver room underneath Devontae. We're not going to rely on Quez Watkins. Olamide Zaccheaus has shown that he can't do anything. Yeah, Julio Jones. Maybe you throw Julio in a tight end.
Yeah, they're going to have to find ways, and they're going to have to spread the ball out, because I am concerned. It's been a lot of A.J. Brown for this offense, and it's worked so far. So it's hard. Again, we're nitpicking at things because of the way we feel after these victories. It doesn't feel like last year when it just felt like this team was clicking on all cylinders throughout the entire season.
No, we're not dominating teams.
But let me ask you this. We're going to have a special guest on next week to prepare for the Chiefs game with our boy Chris Styles. Do you think Kansas City Chiefs fans are saying the same thing about their team? Because I don't think
100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, they're kind of in the same boat. We're still winning football games.
When I watch the Chiefs, if they didn't have the jerseys on and the names on them, I wouldn't think they were the Chiefs when I watch them. I mean, I don't consume them, you know what I mean, religiously. I'm not watching every play, but when I put on a Chiefs game, I'm seeing a lot of Pacheco. I'm seeing a lot of Mahomes running around and trying to do the things that make him great. But then his weapons just aren't what they used to be, and they're not playing as such. I think what was it in Germany? I saw a couple of nice plays. I think maybe it was Sky Moore or that Rice kid that they liked, the rookie.
Yeah.
Made a couple of good plays. Travis Kelce looks slow.
He had a bad game. Listen, I post my NBA props every week, and I said one of the last things I worry about is afternoon basketball games, and I would include NFL Europe games in regards to.
No, I don't even just mean in Germany. I just mean in general. He just looks like slow. Like he looks more plodding than he. And how old is he? He's like 33, 34 now, right?
Yeah, he's up there for sure. And don't forget, he had the knee injury earlier this year too.
Yeah, I don't think he looks as fast as he did. And he was never a burner, obviously, by any means. I mean, he's still able to use his body. You know, he runs good routes. Pat knows where he's going to be at all times, and he's right there at the drop of a dime. But he just looks slow to me. Yeah, that ankle injury, right?
And the Kansas City Chiefs have been very, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to say unaggressive, but they've been willing to let receivers walk. Yeah. Tyreek Hill, Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't great for them last year, but he was a veteran body that I think they had some trust in. And there's not a lot of really good playmakers on that offense outside of Kelce. And, Pacheco's a nice running back that they have there. So if he's not moving at 100%, that offense definitely has some holes. It's just that defense has all of a sudden become one of the most elite units in the league, which is certainly, bailed out the way the offense has fallen off of sorts. But we'll get the inside scoop next week when we have Chris on of what's going on in Kansas City.
Yeah, I can't wait. Honestly, because I don't just looking at it, it seems like they're missing a lot of pieces. But like you said, I mean, their defense is playing really well. They're only giving up 176 yards in the air per game. So we'll see what Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts have cooked up after the bye week.
One other observation, I was looking this up, and you mentioned the amount of passes that are getting thrown against them. So that may be the reason behind this. And I would love to get Chris's opinion on it because I know he's a little bit more of a coach and has that. Jordan Davis snap counts the last 2 weeks, 17 and 18.
Yeah, he hasn't been on the field.
Fletcher Cox is up in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you asked his coaching staff before the season where they would like that to be, it would be reversed. Now, if they don't trust Jordan Davis to get to the passer, and it's just the fact that he's a run stuffer and teams aren't running the ball, I get that, but I got to think you would want to develop this guy in the pass. So I'm very curious. I know he left the game the other day with a little bit of an injury, ended up coming back. But even the game before that, he only played 17 snaps. So I'm not sure what's going on there with Jordan Davis.
Yeah, Sunday I chalked it up to the injury. Well, not necessarily injury, but just him getting hurt. And then, but I don't know because I noticed he was not on the field either. And I felt like he's had a good start to the season. Like I feel like I was seeing him a lot in the backfield in those first 3 or 4 games.
In the beginning of the season for sure, but I think the last few weeks he's been very quiet. And Fletcher's played well.
I wonder if he has something nagging. That just, you know what I mean, isn't showing up on the injury report. Just something they're trying to get worked out.
Yeah, look, it'll be interesting. They have the bye week coming up. I think it's coming at a great time. Obviously, you've seen Jalen limping around. He's got some sort of knee ailment that's bothering him. So hopefully a week off will get these guys going. And then, again, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle. There are no breaks coming out of the bye. So we will see exactly what's going to happen with this group. In 2 weeks.
Yep. And it doesn't get easier in the NFL.
No, but look, at the end of the day, they're in the driver's seat, right? And home field advantage in the bye is what's most important. And, once you look at the schedule and you look back on it at the end of the year, if you're, 15-2 or 14-3, you are what you are at that point, and the wins are the wins. So
I was just going to say it. Win is a win.
Take it any way you can get it, especially against Dallas, right? So, like let's not. We all agree that Dallas is a good football team, so let's not sugarcoat it and be all disgruntled about the victory, because they got the job done at the end of the day, whether it was by hook or by crook. It's a win.
Yeah, Dallas might be the second best team in that conference.
I don't have any fear of Dallas come playoff time.
No, I don't either. I have no fear. I respect them. And I recognize that they're a team that could potentially beat us in a playoff game, because I think Dallas in the playoffs coming to the Link is very similar to when we talked about the Phillies and we talked about the wild card round, and we said that the Marlins have no fear coming to Citizens Bank Ballpark. Now, we saw how that went. So it didn't go the Marlins' way. But I just think because of the familiarity, there's no fear in Dallas coming to the Link, even in January.
I don't think they're scared, but that the history of disappointment, it stacks up over time. I do think Dallas has more of a fear of playing San Francisco than they do playing the Eagles. That's for sure, given their history there. But again, I kind of, does it feel a little bit, Celtics Sixer-ish, where, Dak, what can go wrong will go wrong. We'll find out, because there's going to be a playoff matchup. It's going to be Dallas, San Francisco, or Dallas, Philadelphia at some point in time.
And that what can go wrong, could go wrong, goes back even further than Dak. I mean, you're talking
Tony Romo. You're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dallas hasn't been to a Super Bowl in 30 years.
Yeah,
almost 30 years.
Or the 95 or whatever.
I think 96 they got to. 95 was the Niners and the Chargers. The Cowboys were the year after.
That was like that 16-point spread, right? I think that might be the biggest spread in Super Bowl history, the biggest favorite.
The Chargers won?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve Young threw 5 touchdowns or something along those lines.
Ernie Ivanone's in the chat. I was at Ernie Ivanone's house for that Super Bowl.
ISP.
His parents' Super Bowl party, ISP. Not even 2K yet. ISP 96.
Question in the chat: who do you fear more, Dallas or San Francisco? For me, it's not even a question. A healthy San Francisco 49ers team worries me more because, first of all, I think they're a better football team. I think Brock Purdy has leaked a little bit of oil, as we've seen the last few weeks, but I think Trent Williams has not been healthy. Debo has obviously not been on the field defensively. Now they've added Chase Young. But the other thing about it is that team is hungry. And I'm not saying Dallas isn't, but that team wants the Eagles after what happened last year. Right or wrong, they make all the excuses for the injuries, this and that. In their heads, it was theirs to lose. I think they're the better football team. I think they're the hungrier football team. And I also think they match up better with the Eagles. So for me, it's 100% the 49ers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They're a better team on all sides of the football than Dallas. San Fran, for me, is the team I wouldn't want to see in the playoffs if we could avoid them.
I appreciate all the questions in the chat. It brings some good conversation.
Keeps me on my toes for sure. I can't plan for those.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else out before we jump into segment 2 tonight?
Let's just enjoy the bye week, man. It'll be nice being able just to not have to be totally engaged on a Sunday this week and just enjoy some Sixers. Maybe catch a Flyers game or two.
Let's go Flyers.
Maybe guess we all fired up while he's feeding the Twins.
Yeah, you got some TV time to kill, that's for sure. All right, we're going to jump into segment 2 tonight. We're going to keep the football train moving. It's halfway through the season unofficially, as we've got, actually maybe officially, right? 18 weeks in the NFL season. We're through week 9 at this point.
Yep.
So we wanted to go through each division and just ask some questions in regards to where we were. And what we wanted to do was to take a look at some of our predictions in the preseason. So I'm going to go and actually pull up that spreadsheet. And if you're watching us on some of our social media, you're going to be able to see what some of our picks were before the season started.
This is news to me. I didn't know they were going to be displayed for the world to see. I thought it was going to be, we get to pick and choose which ones we wanted to talk about here.
Listen, we gotta be straightforward and honest with these guys. So let me just open this up, and then we're going to maybe we'll just do a brief overview and look at this before we even jump into some of the questions.
See what stands out here.
I'm coming. We're going to go.
You always talk about me having a good memory, but when it comes to stuff like this, these picks, I don't know what I picked. You could tell me you could have changed the spreadsheet. And
you had the Cardinals winning the conference.
Yeah, I would just have to believe you.
All Having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but there we go. Are you see that or no?
I see it. I can't read it, but I can see that it exists on the screen. You got to zoom in or something.
I don't know if I can zoom in. I can probably make it a little bit bigger. Home.
There you go. There you go.
It's a little bit confusing to read, but let's start in the NFC East. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and we'll look at our thing. So quickly here, I had the over for both the Eagles and Dallas. That looks good. Over for Washington, over with 6.5. That's up in the air, and the under for the Giants. I think those are 4 pretty good picks. You were really down on Washington at 4-13, but other than that, I think yours look pretty good as well. So we're kind of on the ball in the NFC East. Nothing to rub in our faces here. But my first question to you: is there a world where the Dallas Cowboys win this division?
Well, the Dallas Cowboys right now are 5-3. The Eagles are 8-1, and I was looking at the schedules. And I think the only way Dallas can win this division, and we're not going to talk about injuries, they have to go probably 7-2 at worst, and that has to include beating Philly in Dallas. And then they need the Eagles just to fall apart in this 5-game stretch coming out of the bye and go 1-4 at best, which I don't see a world in which the Eagles go potentially 0-5. But if the Eagles come out of the bye and they lose to Kansas City, they lose to the Niners, they lose to the Cowboys, they lose at Seattle, and they only beat the Bills in that stretch, something like that, which, again, I put that at a very low chance. Like I'd rather throw $100 on a number in roulette than bet on the Eagles going 1-4 out of the bye. But that's the only world where I can see it happening, because then the Eagles have 3 games at the end of the season where they play the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think if it's going to take the Eagles really, losing, I would say at least 3 games, probably more likely 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if that's the case, we got bigger issues to worry about,
right,
than Dallas winning the division. So I would agree with you there that this is the Eagles division to lose at this point in time. My other question for you: have we seen Daniel Jones play his last snap for the New York Giants?
Well, how long is that contract for? It's for like another 3 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, NFL contracts are always weird though, man. And the Giants are going to have a very, very high draft pick this year.
Oh, so you're letting on to little Caleb Williams is what you're thinking.
Or Drake May
Wow.
coming out. I just don't know how you can pass up on one of those guys given what you've seen from Daniel Jones. And I know, again, I don't have all the contract details at this point, but I mean, how can you pass up on a Caleb Williams if that opportunity presents itself?
I thought you were thinking DeVito.
Get your shine box DeVito.
So Top Shelf in the chat said it's too high of a cap hit to let him go. So yeah, I agree. They paid him too much money.
Well, I mean, you don't want to pay that much for a backup quarterback, but
right. So my answer is he plays again. I don't see this being the end of his career as a Giant.
All right, we will see. Daniel Jones. I don't think he's the starting quarterback on that team going into next year. May still be on the roster, but I don't think he's the starting quarterback.
Do you think it's because of the injury? Or do you think
that's true? I mean, the ACL, he may not be ready to come back by midseason, but I think they're bringing in somebody else to be the quarterback of the future for the Giants.
Okay, all right. You want me to go to the AFC East?
Yeah, let's do the AFC East. So let's just quickly look at our picks. New England under for both of us. Obviously, a really good pick there. You were under on Miami. I'm over on Miami. You were bullish on the Jets. That was the big argument we got into.
Yeah.
Obviously it's tainted. It's tainted.
Obviously we don't know what Aaron Rodgers would have played like. We don't know what a 39-year-old or however 40-year-old, whatever he is, Aaron Rodgers would have played. We have to imagine he would have been an upgrade over Zach Wilson, and that defense is for real.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I still wasn't that bullish on this team because I'm not that. I think Rodgers didn't have as much left in the tank as some people thought, but obviously it's not fair to truly assess that pick.
No, there's a world in the multiverse where they're like 6-2, 7-1 with Rodgers.
Maybe there's maybe a world where they're the same team.
The pick is in. We live and die with the picks. Vegas doesn't want to hear any of this about the injuries. They're not giving me my money back.
Both of us have the over on Buffalo, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But yeah, hit me with some AFC East stuff.
So AFC East. Well, let's talk about Buffalo first. What's going on with Buffalo?
Listen, I was very bullish on Buffalo going into this season. I think I had them in the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, I think I was wrong. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, they started off strong, but they've gotten destroyed with injuries. We talked about the Eagles' injuries earlier. Tre'Davious White was obviously one of their best defensive backs. He's out for the year. They have a linebacker, I think Milano. I'm drawing a blank on. I think it was Matt Milano. He's out for the year. They just lost another guy on defense this week. So I think obviously when you lose that many guys, it's very difficult to bounce back. And Josh Allen, I think we keep wanting Josh Allen to take this next step, but he may just be what he is, which is very good, but going to turn the ball over. He's going to make X amount of bad throws. He's had this shoulder injury, which I think you could see. I think he's lost a little zip on his ball. And at the end of the day, Kincaid has come on in recent weeks, but Gabe Davis has just not become the guy they need him to be. They committed to the run game early this year. They've kind of given up on it. They brought in Leonard Fournette last week. I think they're a better team when they run the football. I just don't know if they're as good as I thought they were to start the season.
Did you see the picture of Leonard Fournette's hocks?
No, I'm sure Leonard was a thick boy. Leonard's always been thick, and now that he's been out of the league for a year. I'm sure he's even thicker.
Dude, those hocks were something else. You got to get your eyes on that. I think Josh Allen, is he like the modern day Brett Favre? Oh, Brett Favre, the gunslinger. Oh, look at him just have fun back there. He just throws the ball up and just hopes Stephon Diggs comes down with it.
I think that's
way through. That's rough.
I think it's an insult to Favre.
I hated Favre, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that.
Yeah, but Favre was a league MVP. Favre won a Super Bowl. I mean, Favre definitely had his issues as far as gunslinging goes, but I think Favre is a better quarterback than Josh Allen to this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the Josh Allen story is probably not even a third of the way done.
Right, and we have to factor in it's definitely a lot easier to throw the football in this day and age than it was in the the mid '90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I don't know. Allen, he has a career high completion percentage this year, 71.3%, which is, I mean, he was 69% one year, but other than that, he usually hovers around the low 60s.
What's his interception rate compared to previous years?
It's about middle of the pack. He's 2.8. Actually, it's the second highest of his career, but that's normally where he's at, right around like the 2.5, high twos. I mean, 9 picks midway through is 9 picks. That's a lot of picks.
I mean, look, they're 5-4 right now, and there's a world where they don't make the playoffs because the AFC is loaded.
Yeah, the AFC stacked. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There was a lot of national media was down on Buffalo this year, I feel like.
For sure.
All right, where we go next?
Let's go to the NFC North.
The Norris.
So quickly, we look at our picks. We both had the Packers unders. Those are probably hits. We both had the Bears under. That's a hit. We both had the Minnesota over, which I think is still in play. It looked dead early on, but they've come on recently.
I have a division winners parlay where I took all 8 division winners, and Minnesota is in there, and I'm just hanging on by a thread, man.
Yeah.
Devin Pittsburgh.
I think you can rip that ticket up. But you had the over on Detroit, so you're looking good in that division. I took the under on Detroit, which I was wrong with. They're obviously a really good team. But the questions I have for this division, the one I have, are the Lions contenders to go to the Super Bowl?
To go to the Super Bowl, I think it would be ignorant and a little bit I just think it would be ignorant to say that they can't make it. They're second in the league in yards per game on offense. They're 5th in the league in yards allowed on defense. They're a dangerous team. I personally do think they're a year away. I just think the experience factor, they haven't been there in how long as a franchise? When's the last time they were in the playoffs? I mean,
Stafford got them there. I remember the year Stafford lost to Dallas. That the last year that they were in there.
Yeah, and then everybody loves Dan Campbell, and I love him too. But he's never coached in a playoff game. That's a different environment. You potentially the road is going to go through Philly. That's a different environment. I don't know. I don't know that. If I had to give a percent, yeah, sure they can make it. Maybe it's like a 20% chance.
I think 20 is high.
Yeah, actually, this side probably about a 10 to 15% chance.
Yeah, I think
Eagles, you got the Niners, and then you got probably Detroit and Dallas.
I don't see this team going on the road and winning in San Francisco. I don't see them going on the road and winning in Philadelphia. And maybe they don't have to. Again, they're sitting at 6-2, so they're in a spot where, again, we talked about the Eagles' tough schedule. if the Eagles drop a few and Detroit stays hot, maybe the home field goes through Detroit. I don't see that happening, but I definitely don't see them going on the road and winning that playoff game. I think they're a good team. They're up and coming. I had them at 9-8 going into this year, which is, I was wrong. They're definitely a better football team than that. But I'm not ready to call them a Super Bowl contender. To me, they have the 1, 2, fourth, probably the fourth best odds, like you said, behind the Eagles, San Francisco, and Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a nice little story. I do think they're 1 year away. Along with, I think I said this in the preseason we talked about them. I think them and Jacksonville are both 1 year away.
I think Jacksonville's closer than Detroit, but we'll talk about them in a little bit.
All right. So we're moving to the AFC North.
Sure.
All right. So we got a two-parter here. We have.
Hold on. Let's look at the picture.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Baltimore. So Baltimore was the pick that I was just taking the one team that fell apart, and I was wrong on them. I had them under. You had them over. You were really down on Pittsburgh.
No, but I wasn't. Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, you changed later on.
I took them to win the division after I made that under pick as my best bet.
I think that's a good way to fool everybody. You say, "Well, I had them to win the division, but I also had them at 6-11."
That's right.
Record. I had them at 10 wins. I don't know how the hell they're 5-3, but
defense.
Yeah, Cincinnati, you had the under. I had the over. Obviously, the slow start, and I think we may have both been wrong on Cleveland, where we had the under with that total of 9.5. But we'll see what happens the rest of the
season. And the Cincy over under was 11.5. So that's still.
Yeah, that's still up in the air.
Absolutely. And then what's Cleveland? I can't remember what Cleveland is.
Cleveland was 9.5.
Okay, and they're 5-3 right now, so that's still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, they still got to stay hot.
Yeah. All right. So in the AFC North, you have Baltimore right now sitting at 7-2. They have the biggest scoring differential in the league. So are they for real? Are they a Super Bowl contender?
I think listen, everything changes week to week in the NFL. I think more so than anything, you can't take what you learned last week and all of a sudden try and run it into the next week because everything just seems to change every week. But I think right now the Baltimore Ravens are playing the best football in the NFL. The defense is extremely good. Lamar Jackson is doing enough. Mark Andrews is having a really good year. They found a decent mix and match. I feel like every year they're mixing and matching their running backs, whether it's Gus Edwards, this kid Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill. They're all running the football. They've listened. 2 of the past 3 weeks, they mopped the floor with the Lions. Then this week they went, and who they mopped the floor with this week?
Seattle. They crushed Seattle.
So a couple of NFC teams that we consider to be good teams have come in there and lost by 4 touchdowns. I don't see how you can not say they're the most complete team right this moment. And again, that can change, but they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender the way they're playing. And Lamar might be the favorite to win the MVP at this point.
That was my next question. Is Lamar in the hunt right now for the MVP award, which he has to be?
He's definitely in the hunt. I mean, Mahomes, obviously, as long as Kansas City's in the mix, is going to be, right in there. Jalen has to be in there, even though I don't think he's played as well. And then, I think Lamar is right in that mix.
Well, Lamar's got 9 touchdowns in the air. He's got another 5 on the ground. This team isn't what it is without him. And I was looking at their schedule, trying to pick apart, maybe they had a couple. I mean, look, they played Tennessee, Houston, Arizona. That's fine. But like you said, man, they smoked Detroit. They smoked Seattle. Those games weren't even close. So, I think that they probably in the AFC, they got to be the favorites right now, right?
At this moment, I would say if I was a betting man, I'm still taking Kansas City over them. But I think they're playing better football than Kansas City at this moment.
I think that's just because of the trust factor, right? You're going to trust Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid more so than you're going to trust Harbaugh and Jackson.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Lamar Jackson's ever won a playoff game. And if he has, his playoff numbers are very, very poor.
I know his playoff numbers are bad. I remember talking about them last year.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got?
I just wanted to also say, I think that's the best division in football. I don't think you can argue it otherwise. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland.
NFC South?
No, AFC North.
No, I know. Yeah, no, it definitely
Yeah.
It definitely is.
So, that's a war. Okay, let's go over to the NFC South. We'll look at these picks. I have 4 unders here. And to be honest with you, I think they all have a shot of hitting.
Yeah.
One team probably ends up cracking the over. Maybe it's in Atlanta. You also had 4 under, so we were on the same page there. This division is terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. Can we do we have to talk about them?
We'll just go quickly. Let me see the question I had for them.
Yeah, something about can they beat Dallas at home or can they beat Detroit at home?
No, skip that one. I got a better one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was Carolina's decision to trade DJ Moore, next year's first-round draft pick, to Chicago, and then take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud?
Yeah, 10 especially because of the draft pick. That's despicable. That's a fireable offense. Who's their GM? He should be gone.
I mean, listen, it's a little too soon to say we're all out on Bryce Young, especially given the offensive line, the issues that Carolina has. But when you see what CJ Stroud is doing in Houston, listen, if you're gonna, I said this when the Eagles traded up for Carson Wentz, if you're going to make the trade to move up to draft a quarterback in this league, it does not matter how much you give up if you get the guy.
Right.
But you better get the guy.
Right.
And I think they missed the guy.
They completely missed the guy. They completely whiffed. They're like last in everything on offense this season.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, it's always hard to go into a team that's not a good football team and try and be a quarterback that can, lift them up, especially as a rookie. So again, I was never bullish on Young to begin with, but I'm not ready to call him a complete bust just based on what I've seen for 9 weeks. I think that there's a chance they could turn around, but it does not look good compared to again what you're seeing, not only from Stroud, but even like a Will Levis, or what Anthony Richardson flashed for a couple games.
Yeah, and look, I know it's tough sledding, but Miles Sanders, woo!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, 3.3 yards per attempt. He hasn't done anything down there.
But that just goes back to showing like it's offensive line matters so much. You go from one of the best offensive lines in football to one of the worst offensive lines in football, and look what that does to you. I mean, Miles Sanders, I think you would agree, is a talented running back.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And this isn't a shot at Sanders. It's just because he was an Eagle and I wanted to mention his name. But it's also just that's another failure on the part of the GM. What are you doing spending all that money on Miles Sanders?
Yep, $6 million a year for Miles Sanders.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I will say this: I will give myself some props. I've always been a big CJ Stroud guy.
Bullshit. Get out of here. You're lucky. I have the screen up now and I can't pull it down. I wish I would have seen your face when you said that.
It took you a second to process that. I saw your face when you processed it.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Let's go AFC South, and we'll look quickly here. You were a little bullish on Tennessee. I think that was an error. Houston, we both had the under. We're both going to be it's 6.5, but I think they get there.
For who was that? Tennessee?
Houston.
Oh, Houston. Yeah, they probably get there. They're trending that way. They're a tough little team this year, man.
They are a tough team. Jacksonville, we both had the over, which looks like it'll be fine. In Indianapolis, I had the over. You had the under, but it was 6.5. So that's going to be tight as well. But hit me up with a question about the AFC South.
Well, the question I have is, does this division have the best future in football at the quarterback position? You have Trevor Lawrence. You have CJ Stroud. You have Anthony Richardson, and then you have Will Levis.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other divisions.
Like, are these the guys that are going to be the marquee names in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years?
I think if you're just trying to, the only division that can compete with it right now at this moment is the North in the AFC, which we talked about when you have Lamar, you have Joe Burrow, and Deshaun Watson, who is showing a little bit of signs of life. But then you have Kenny Pickett. Again, CJ Stroud looks like. Let me ask you this: if we were to draft, I'm putting you on the spot here. If we were to draft right now quarterbacks for all new teams in the league, not just for this year but for the future, how many quarterbacks would you take before you took Stroud?
Oh my God.
Let's quickly run through the categories.
Definitely at least Hurts, Mahomes, right?
Okay.
Definitely at least. I would still take Burrow.
Okay.
I would still take.
Would you take Herbert?
I would. I probably would. only because I've seen more of him.
Lawrence
I would take Lawrence, and that might be it.
and to Josh Allen, no.
Oh yeah, Allen and Lamar
I
Jackson.
think you're underrating what Stroud has done as a rookie.
Well, I'm underrating it because how much Houston Texans football have I watched?
Yeah, no, I
That's
hear
why
you.
I'm underrating. I mean, I
show
know
he
he's
put
a
on this
phenomenal
weekend.
game on Sunday.
What about Brock
Dude, I was gonna say him first just to piss him
Purdy?
off, just to see if he listened this week.
But no, I think that division. I'm not ready to crown it yet, but the potential. I mean, again, Lawrence looks like he's a franchise quarterback who can lead you to the playoffs every year. Levis, we've only seen 2 games, but he's looked really good. I think Stroud's a stud, and then Anthony Richardson has shown some flashes. That division has the potential to be really good for a long time with those quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
All right, let's go to the NFC West. Quickly, we both had the Seattle over. That looks good. Both had the Rams under. Did not look good early, but it looks really good now. Arizona, I took the over. God, that was probably one of my worst picks. You guys had the under. They've been better than I think you guys thought they were going to be. You had them at 2-15. They've been feisty, but they haven't been good.
Well,
San Francisco,
just got rid of the quarterback though.
that's true. But Kyler's back.
That's true too. Is that a good thing?
I mean, it's better than the kid they threw out there, Clayton Tune.
Yeah, I don't know who
Got
that is.
tuned up.
No idea who that is.
With that, the San Francisco over as well, which I mean should hit as long as they get it together. I guess my question to you is, what is Seattle at this point?
Dude, I have no idea, man. When you look at their stats as a team, they're all over the place. They're good at some things, bad at some things, middle of the pack at most things. They've lost to the Rams, they've lost to the Bengals, they've lost to the Ravens. So I mean, okay, the Rams, first game of the year, division game, I get it. Losing at Cincinnati and losing at Baltimore, though, that's excusable.
What was the score in the Cincy game?
17-13.
All right, so they were in it.
So it was tight. They had the overtime win at Detroit early on in the year. They beat Cleveland. They have the easier schedule, I want to say, coming down the stretch between them and San Fran, because San Fran's playing that first place schedule. Do I think they can win the West? Dude, San Fran's been slipping down a slope here, maybe. But I don't think they're for real, Seattle.
Yeah, I think defensively, I think they're a little bit better than they have been in the past, but I think Gino's taken a little bit of a step back. So I'm not ready to crown Seattle as anything more. Again, when we talked last week about the playoff teams in the NFC, Seattle should definitely be one of them because of how bad the NFC is. But I don't think they're anything more than that. And the fact that they're tied with San Francisco in the division, I don't see them. I think San Francisco eventually pulls away in that division.
Yeah, I agree. I think Purdy gets his act together.
I think so too. And again, getting Trent Williams back will definitely help that.
Yep.
All right, last one is the AFC West. We'll quickly go through. Both had the over for Kansas City, which looks good. Both had the under for Vegas, which is going to come down to the wire. They seem to be playing a little bit better now that they fired Josh McDaniels. Chargers, you were really down on the Chargers, and you might be right. I think they're here 500 right now. I was bullish on them. You had the over for Denver. I had the under for Denver. So flip-flop there as I seem to hit that one. What do you have for the AFC West?
Why is it that you love the Chargers so much? Why do they trick you every year?
Every year. Because there's so much talent on this team. And we underrate in certain aspects. I think we rate properly when a team has a good coach and what that can mean to a team. When we talk Pittsburgh every year, I think we talk about Mike Tomlin and the fact he's never had a losing season. And we look at this Pittsburgh team and, they have Kenny Pickett. They don't really have any receivers, but we still think they're going to be good enough to win. But I don't think we value enough what a bad coach does. Yeah. And Brandon Staley just continually finds ways to lose games. And at some point, we do have to stop blaming him and talk a little bit about Justin Herbert and the fact that there's been plenty of times. How many close games have the Chargers lost? Like
all of them.
It feels like every week. At some point, you got to be able to win a game if you want to be in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. Again, we just talked CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, who you rather have. You said Herbert pretty easily. I just watched CJ Stroud take his team down the field with less than a minute to go to win the football game. I don't know how many times I've seen Justin Herbert do that in 3 years. They're always on the losing side of those games.
Looking at his career stats, Justin Herbert right now, it says he has 11 fourth quarter comebacks. It's just a number. I don't know the context of any of these games. You know what I mean? Any of these wins. That actually was higher than I thought. And it says he has 14 game-winning drives, which is defined by an offensive scoring drive in the fourth quarter or overtime that puts the winning team ahead for the last time. So these can be obviously drives that occur in the beginning of the quarter that, you know what I mean, the other team just doesn't score.
What's this BABIP?
That is the Bob. That's the BABIP of football. It's the GWID, the game-winning drives.
How many GWIDs? How many GWIDs you got?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess they have me a little bit bamboozled too. The Chargers and Justin Herbert.
Clearly they didn't. They have him at 6-12.
No, but I mean, as far as the question you just asked about taking him over CJ Stroud.
But like Bosa and the safety Derwin James, they've got players all over the field. Mike Williams always gets hurt. That's an issue. Eckler's good. Keenan Allen, I don't understand why they don't seem to put it all together. But listen, they won a big game last night, a game they had to have that I thought they had a chance of dropping against the Jets. But,
yeah, this is another team that hasn't beaten anybody.
Yeah, no, it's a conundrum. I'm sure their fans are the fans that limited fans that they have.
What fans?
There's not many.
What fans? That one Asian woman, that plant.
Yeah, but I think that might be part of the problem too. Is these teams that go to play there?
Yeah,
they don't have any home games.
Dude, this day and age in 2023, right? We know that not every player, their goal in being a professional athlete is to win the championship, right? It's just not. Like some of these guys, their goal was achieved the day they heard their name on draft day or the day they signed their contract. And I think some of these guys that play for these nicer climate places and these places that don't really have the rabid fans, they just want to go. It's a job. They want to go and do their thing, get their check, and go home at the end of the day. And I think that organization is one of those places. It's a stink that they can't get off.
It's hard when the fan base just doesn't back you.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But it's like the nice weather, like it's just like a great place to live. Like it's like a low key place. Like you look like people there don't care about anything. Why would they? It's paradise.
No, you're right. Listen, we forgot to do the sponsor read before this segment, so why don't we do Righteous Felon as the sponsor for the lock of the week, Al?
You threw me off here. Righteous Felon. We're still doing the promo code is OCSN to get you 15% off your entire order. If you spend more than $50 on the website, righteousfelon.com, everything is shipped for free. I don't have one off the top of my head, so I'll just go back to the Victorious BIG. That's the one you bought the other week, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, look, what was the consistency on the chewiness scale? Was it a good chewiness, not too chewy, not too hard?
Yeah, no, the chewiness factor was good. That's always obviously a big thing. But you don't want it. Sometimes when you get the jerky, you want it to be a little chewy. You don't want it to be too tender. But it definitely had some chewiness to it. My only issue, and it's not Righteous Felon, because actually I got a lot in Righteous Felon. I just wish there was more jerky in the bag of jerky.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll say this, though, in their defense. So I've tried to make my own jerky before, and it's not only is it a bitch, it doesn't taste the same. So do yourself a favor. Don't be like me. Don't go Googling recipes. Just go Google righteousfelon.com. OCSN is the promo code. Get 15% off your order.
I will not have any other jerky other than Righteous Felon, that's for sure.
Right.
Let's get to our locks of the week. And Al, I got some beef with you, dude.
What's the beef? What now?
You didn't put any picks out this week.
Nothing.
I did give you one. Listen, we both did hit our best bet. Chris let us down. We could have been close to 3-0. We both had the Birds last week.
Here's how I look at it. It was my bye week.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Listen, I've been terrible all year. I went 4-1 last week.
All right. There you go.
I'm back at it. My only loss, I had the Jets last night. I mentioned I thought that was a game. But this week, I'm going to go back to a team that I did have. This week was not my best bet. I'm going to take the Vegas Raiders, and they're getting 1.5 on Sunday night against the New York Jets. There must have been a major, major locker room issue with Josh McDaniels, because that situation has played itself out and has looked really ugly as far as the relationship the players had with him, because since they let him go, it seems like a brand new team attitude wise. You saw them smoking the stogies after the big win over the Giants this week. I just think the Jets are going on the road across country on a short week. I'm getting points at home on Sunday night with a team that seems to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And the Raiders, I think, are 4-5. They're not out of it yet.
What did I tell you about taking bad teams? Stop taking bad teams as your best bet.
Here's the problem, Al. 22 of the 30 teams in this league are bad.
Dude, looking through the lines.
32 teams.
I don't remember ever seeing so many games where the total was so low. There was like a 34.5 out there. There's a bunch of 36.5, 37, 38. And what's that tell you?
These quarterbacks stink. We talked about it last week.
Bad offense.
I just said there's 22 of the 32 teams are bad. The Chiefs, the Dolphins, and the Eagles are on bye.
Yeah.
And then the Cowboys are laying 17.
Well, I'll tell you who my survivor pick is this week. Jesus. But dude, they're laying 17. It's only a 38-point spread. What's that tell you about the score that Vegas thinks is going to occur?
Get your shine box.
Sure. Well, listen, my best bet this week is my Vikings at home against the Saints. The Vikings are getting 2.5. Josh Dobbs is a gamer, dude. He's one of those dudes that just has the chip on his shoulder. You want to disrespect him, Arizona, and not have the man's jersey on sale at the team store, let alone despite the fact that he's your starting quarterback? I mean, this guy's bounced around. He's finally got a spot, got a little moxie in him. He's got a little bit of that Geno Smith from last season in him. Dude just seems to win games. So give me the Vikings. Josh Dobbs getting 2.5 at home.
All right, sounds good. Let's keep the momentum rolling with these best bets. Is without Chris, all we gotta do is go 2-0 to
easy,
perfect. We'll see if we can get one for him, and we'll post it on the Twitter account. I did want to plug again my NBA props of the week. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at 3K Podcast. You see it right up there on the screen if you're watching us live. I'm posting an NBA prop bet almost every night. I did miss on Sunday, but we're 7-5. We are +2 units for the season. So make sure you're following that, especially if you're gambling, because I got a lot of winners to come with the system.
I did have a buddy text me and say, "Hey, good job on those picks. I've been following them on Twitter."
I love that. Make sure you got to tell me that beforehand.
I don't want to hype you up too much, and then the pressure is too much, and you start picking guys on the worst teams, like you're picking the Raiders this week.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Listen, before we get into segment 3, you want to talk about Warlord's grooming essentials?
Without Chris here, somebody's got to do it. So if you go to warlordbeardoil.com, anything you order on the website, it's 15% off with the promo code OCSN15. They have everything you need. Guys, the cold weather is here. You got to keep as warm as possible. And the way you do that, body hair, facial hair, grow it out, slather a little beard oil on there, make it look good, make it smell good. Maybe even use someone. Look, I got some friends that are bears. Maybe spread some on that chest hair, spread some on that back hair. Who knows? It can't hurt. So go to warlordbeardoil.com. You're going to use the promo code OCSN15, and it gets you 15% off anything you order on the website. And Adam, when should you go to that website?
Today. Did that suffice?
You almost missed it. I was worried.
My wife was texting me from upstairs, and I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention during the ad read. I'm not a guy who, needs these essentials. So you caught me sleeping there for a second.
No, you recovered nicely.
Thank you. But listen, segment 3 is going to be a good one. Al, we both graduated 20 years ago. You were able to go to our 20th high school reunion. I was not able to make it this past weekend. And there's nothing better to do than reminisce.
Adam, we've done some segments in the past that we thought were very niche. Like, we talked about golf a few times, and I got some negative feedback about that. Nobody cares about golf. Who are you? You're not some golf pundit. Guys, if you're listening and you did not go to high school with us, or you did not grow up in the Philadelphia area and didn't go to a Catholic school in the Philadelphia area, we're not going to be offended. You might as well go and just turn it off right now. We're going to be talking about high school sports, and we're going to be talking about specifically from the years 1999 to 2003, which are the 4 years where Adam, Chris, and I were at Archbishop.
Well, we have a specific time frame because I bounced outside of that time frame.
No, I bounced outside of it too. But the majority of the people that I'm going to be bringing up are people that I watched live while I was at high school. I watched very little high school sports live as an adult once I graduated, outside of Catholic League basketball. But this conversation, it's a nostalgia conversation. We're going to see, what names we remember, what games we remember, because we were blessed, Adam. Obviously, you don't know it at the time, but multiple D1 athletes going through not just the Catholic League as a whole, but Archbishop Carroll, the hallways of Archbishop Carroll, rubbing shoulders and talking to and seeing on a daily basis kids that went to D1, went pro. So we were very lucky and definitely took it for granted.
We're also going to have a special guest joining us in a few minutes as well, a celebrity of sorts, and a first for this podcast. So stay tuned for that. Al, if you don't mind, I'll get the party started.
Well, before you do, what's the over-under on names that get dropped in this segment? I have over-under 26.5.
Oh, that's a lot of names. I'll go under, but that's a lot.
I think we might blow past it.
Again, your memory's a lot better than mine. So I know this is, you talked about niche. Like this is going to be a little bit tougher for me, but I'm going to start with an obvious one. We were obviously class of 03, Carroll, but 1 year above us. We had a stud on the football field. It was Maurice Stovall.
Yep.
Ended up going to Notre Dame, played 2 really good seasons at Notre Dame, opposite Jeff Samardzija. Was Brady Quinn the quarterback there?
I think he was, and him and Samardzija were one of only 3 duos in Notre Dame history to both have, I think, 1,000 yards. Maybe I might have that stat wrong, but they were one of only 3 duos in Notre Dame history to have to put up something collectively, either touchdowns or yards.
If you watched any of the Carroll 03, the heyday of that football team, they were very run heavy, and Stovall was still an absolute monster on both sides of the ball. Obviously, he played defensive back as well. He ran back kicks. 6'4", lanky, fast. He was just an absolute monster. And I'll never forget when they had the March Madness tournament at Carroll, and he came out with the fro, and it was all puffed out, dude. And all of a sudden, he went from 6'4" to 6'8" real fast.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories of Carroll ever was that first March Madness tournament that we played in freshman year. There were some battles on the court. Remember Ryan Rich?
I only remember one game. That was when we whooped your ass.
That wasn't freshman year. Freshman year, get out of here.
Blank the sophomore year went out.
Get out of here, dude. We won 2 games freshman year. We went to the Elite 8. But to get back to Mo, Mo was a freak, and Mo was a man amongst boys. He was the 2nd overall player in Pennsylvania, the 12th ranked receiver in the nation. He ran a 4.26 40, which is just insane. They won titles in his sophomore, junior, and senior seasons. He had offers from every school across the nation. Ohio State, Florida, ended up going to Notre Dame, like you said. I remember football games being a social event. So I remember not really paying attention too much to the on-field product, not the way I did for basketball games.
And it was hard because, I don't mean, but we were burying teams.
Yes.
It wasn't like these games were entertaining. We were winning games 49-0.
The infamous, I think it was 77-0, right, against Wood.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what game, who it was against. I remember seeing one of his punt returns, though, Mo, where his strides, it just looked like he was gliding down the field and nobody could come close to him. And he held the ball like a loaf of bread, and it just didn't matter because he was a man playing with toddlers. I looked up his stats his senior year. He had 18 touchdowns. 9 of them were receiving, 4 of them were punt returns, and 5 of them were pick sixes.
Yeah.
How do you have 5 pick six touchdowns in high school football? It's insane.
A man amongst boys. And that just shows how good these NFL receivers are, because he made the league, but he only had 3 touchdowns, and he was really a special teams guy when he got to the NFL.
Yeah, he was the real deal in high school. He peaked early, obviously, and who knows why that might have been, whether it was just an athleticism thing or whatever. But also just one of the nicest dudes. I
didn't know him that well, but
was not cocky. There were many times in the hallways of Carroll where I would see people talking to him that didn't necessarily know who he was, just knew he was the football star in the school. And he never turned away anybody. Like, he was never an ass when he was definitely in the position where he could have been.
All right, hit us with another one.
So I gotta give this person some props, even though they were only there 1 year while we were there, and it was our freshman year, and she was a senior at this point, and she was ranked as high as the number 3 girls basketball player in the nation. Do you remember this name?
Yeah, Sharice Graham.
Sharice Graham.
I didn't realize she was number 3 in the country as far as recruits.
She was sick. I want to say she was number 1 at like one point or another. But as high as number 3 to end her career in high school, she averaged 16, 6, 6, and 5 steals as a senior, which, like, high school basketball in 1999, those are pretty crazy numbers. She was the total package. I remember her being able to do a little bit of everything. And most of all, as I remember, she came back as a freshman in college to visit the school. And she came up to me, and I forget who she was with. She was with somebody that knew me. And she was all excited because I shouted her name out in a double I rap. So not only the total package, but a double I fan, Adam.
Yeah, I would say that her college career may have peaked with that double I album because she kind of flamed out. So that may have been her peak here. But we do have our special guest has joined us. We're going to drop her in. The first female guest in 3K podcast history. Jill, I know you're married, but we're going to call you Jill DePetris.
Good.
Villanova women's lacrosse coach and one of the greatest lacrosse players in Archbishop Carroll history. So, Jill, congrats on making history, not only in the lacrosse world, but in the podcasting world.
I love it.
So
Thanks for having me, guys.
We just got started on the conversation, so you haven't missed much. We've really only talked about Maurice Stovall and Sharice Graham. I don't know if you have any memories about either of those two, either playing or interactions that you might have had with them that you want to share.
What did we overlap with Sharice? Like 1 year?
We were freshmen her senior year, so yeah, we didn't really interact.
She was just so cool, though. Like, she was one of those people that you just like looked at her and you were like, you're big time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then she went to Purdue, and things didn't really pan out for her.
I know.
She transferred. Yeah, I think she ended up
Virginia.
I wanted to say Virginia, but I don't know if that's right.
Not sure either.
I might be right if we both thought it, though.
Yeah, that's usually not a good sign, though.
True.
No,
all right, I'm going to
really
hit you up
good.
with one that, Al, you're not familiar with, but we brought a coach on board, so I'm going to talk about this for a second. So I actually, after college, coached high school baseball over at Shipley in Bryn Mawr, and we faced a kid, which was in the Friends League, that for Germantown Friends, by the name of Jesse Biddle. And if the name, you recognize the name, he was a first-round Phillies draft pick out of high school. And when I tell you, he was a lefty, and he threw so hard that they didn't even put a kid in left field because nobody could turn on the ball. They had a kid that would play – the right fielder would play on the right field line. They would put a kid in right center, and then they would put a kid in center field because nobody could turn on him. Just some stats. He was – in his junior year, he was 5-0 with a 0.64 ERA. He had 61 strikeouts in 33 innings. And then as a senior, he was 9-2 with a 1.04 ERA and 140 strikeouts in 59 innings. He was a monster. So I guess my question to Jill is, what do you do when you run across these monsters as a coach? These people that you can't match up against physically.
Are you talking about like in recruiting them, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about going against
coaching
them.
against them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just make sure a game plan off of them. Like make sure everybody knows their number and do the best that we can to like match up against them. But I think that's like the cool thing about coaching, though. It's like the fun thing that like I've seen. It's different than playing. It's like the chess game. Of like how you can like mark up on their top players and take away the things that like that they find as their strengths. Like that's the thing that I really love about it. So yeah, I would say we just like make sure that we tell the girls what their strategy is, what their strengths are, and do our best to kind of eliminate them in the game.
Yeah, that's the difference between like lacrosse and basketball compared to
Yeah.
baseball is when you can't simulate 94 when you get in the box. And there's nothing you can do to strategize to try and hit that for these kids. It's just get in there and close your eyes and swing
Right.
because I mean, listen, if that team scored 2 runs, the game was over. You weren't getting 2 off of him. There was no shot. He was just unbelievable, and he was a pretty good hitter too. But obviously, he made his money from pitching. He was really really tough.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like the thing that's a little bit different about like lacrosse or field hockey is more of the team game, you know? So like one person, it's hard for one person to beat you.
Right, absolutely. Al, you have another one?
Yeah, speaking of team game, and Joe, this is somebody that I think you're a little more familiar with. Um, Jill, with all apologies, my favorite probably Carroll athlete that I got to see live and I got to talk to and hang out with and somewhat befriend was Kashif Payne.
Oh,
So Sheaf was electric on the court. He was probably 5'10", 5'11" on a good day. The quickest high school player I'd ever watched, probably maybe ever. He averaged 18 points in his junior year, which was his final year at Carroll. But my memory of him is I'll never forget our sophomore year. We had a home game against O'Hara, and we were in the thick of like a playoff hunt. We really needed that win. And they were beating us the whole game. And I if I recall correctly, I don't think Sheaf was having a very good game. And then at the buzzer, Sheaf has the ball at the top of the key. He's about 26 feet away from the basket, pulls up and drains the three to win the game 56-54. And it was Carroll's only lead of the game. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We stormed the court. It was fantastic.
oh my gosh. That's so funny that you say that. Like I have no memory of this. I have a terrible memory, but now that you say this, I do remember
that.
I actually remember that play. That is so crazy.
Yeah, it was. I can see it in my head like it was yesterday. He just sat there, dribbled, then just pulled up from it. He was far behind the 3-point line.
I know. I actually remember that now that you say that. That's so funny. I mean, I can tell you remember it vividly. You just like play by play. You just spelled it out.
My favorite though, Sheaf memory, real quick, is freshman year. Carroll had these really sweet shooting shirts for the team, for the players on the team, and Sheaf played varsity as a freshman. So obviously he had one of these shirts. And I said, Sheaf, look, let's play one-on-one after school. And if I beat you, you got to give me your shooting shirt. So of course, Sheaf, like the coolest dude in the world, he's like, all right, yeah, whatever. So we go to the gym and like there's like probably like a dozen or so people there watching. And I've never worked so hard to defend someone in my life. He was so fast. He was so quick. We played up to 5. He won 5-0. And I was so gassed. I was so tired afterwards. James Roderick put me over his shoulder and carried me to the train, which was like a 3-block walk. It wasn't like it was a close walk to the train station. But Sheaf was the man, dude.
Yeah, that's one of the few times in your life you probably bit off more than you can chew. I don't think that was your MO, was it?
Yeah, right. Please. I've been swinging up my whole life.
Yeah, no question about that. I have another one, not a Carroll name, but listen, I gotta watch how I'm going to word this for the people out there. I've always had a thing for undersized big men, especially when it comes to basketball. And Al, I don't know if you remember, Roman Catholic had a power forward, Sharon Fisher. And he was about 6'4", but he was built like a linebacker.
He's a horse.
He could go get buckets anywhere he wanted to. Ended up going over to Niagara, where he averaged for his senior year, he averaged 27 and 9 on the Division I level as a 6'4" power forward. So again, one of those guys that kind of goes under the radar from a recruiting standpoint, but he was just an absolute bucket when he was at Roman.
He led the league junior and senior year in scoring. He scored 21 points a game in both his junior and senior year. And dude, the league was full of studs. I mean, you talk about the prep, had the 4 kids there, Griffin, Zoller, Valerio, Clark. Carroll obviously had guys like Jordan Ingram, Mike Springman. So there were some players, and he led the league 2 years in a row. That's no easy feat.
Yeah, he was really, really good. Jill, do you have any people that you went against or that you remember from the high school days that just kind of wowed you at all? Or even in as you moved later on into your college career?
Do you guys remember I mean, again, goes back to like more lacrosse, but do you guys remember Caitlin McKinney?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
little girl.
Her freshman year, I think she was here for 2 years at Carroll. She was probably like the all-time, I think, top lacrosse athlete. She went to Notre Dame. She ended up being an All-American there. But, you just looked at her and you were like, you're going to be somebody really great. And she helped us win our first Catholic League championship. So I think she was probably one of the top, if not the top, lacrosse player from our time, Carroll, Delco, anywhere from this area.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. Well, that kind of goes back to what we were saying is like at the time we're all friends and,
Yeah.
never realized how good people were until they got to college. And she was incredible then too.
I don't think we've done Jill enough, given her enough credit
No,
coming
we
in.
haven't. You
Enough-
jumped right. You like really glided through the intro, dude.
Well, I did. I screwed it up. So Jill ended up going to Syracuse. Al, I know you're a little bit more familiar with the credentials, but I'm going to tell you a story that I think you told me or somebody else, Jill, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. But is it true that in the Carrier Dome, there is fat heads of Donovan McNabb, Carmelo Anthony, and then you?
I mean, that was true as of the last time I was up there. I don't know if it's still there.
I did tell you that they used to have the banners, and it was obviously the same. They were there at the same time, or not the same time, but in that same period, that same era.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. I used to brag to like everybody about that. Like people were like, "Why do you care about that?" Like I went to school with her. I'm friends with her.
No, looking at that, I'm like, wait, why am I up there with all those people?
Is that humbling? What does that feel like?
I don't know. I feel like I've never on any team. I think I've never been like the best, and for as like as good as I was, I've never was the best. I think I worked really hard. So I think that for me it's not like what I consider myself as. Like I don't consider myself like Donovan McNabb worthy or Carmelo Anthony. I'm like,
Somebody
oh,
did.
that's really cool, but that's not who I remember myself being. In all my teams.
How many career college goals?
I don't even know, actually, to be honest. I don't even know.
Well, I can tell
yeah.
you this, Joe. I did a little homework, a little research.
I was going to look it up, but
Jill DePetris. Wow, you can look up college. So at Archbishop Carroll, Jill was a first-team All-American as a senior. Jill, you scored 115 goals in high school. You were a 3-time Philadelphia Catholic League champion. You were a dual threat as you also played field hockey and led Carroll to a championship. In 2001, you had the game-winning goal against O'Hara in what ended up being a 1-0 game.
Oh my God. Where are you finding this?
Jill, we're in media now, man. We have to, do our research here.
Wow.
So listen, I got to apologize though, because I don't think I ever actually saw you playing a lacrosse game because again, I was not a fan of lacrosse in high school. I didn't know anything about the sport. It didn't interest me. But I know that I saw you play in more than a couple field hockey games for one reason or another. And you were always a force on the field hockey field as well.
I love field hockey. I think field hockey was like so fun. That I have so many good memories like playing field hockey and like winning those Catholic League championships. Cool fact, our field hockey coach when I was at Carroll is now the Penn women's field hockey coach.
Okay.
So, I mean, she was pretty legit. So she really like helped us with like, I don't know, like the right mentality. I think that was like the biggest thing that I learned from her. So yeah, those are the best moments.
Did you feel like you could have a little more fun in field hockey because you weren't necessarily trying to go to the next level? And not that you were in lacrosse, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like you were more serious in lacrosse. So did you feel like field hockey was more fun because you could have more fun with it?
That's so funny. I never thought about that, but yeah, I think so. I think we just kind of like, we're just there playing, it wasn't like a stressful thing. It's not something we're trying to get recruited for. So I feel like it was just like backyard play, whereas lacrosse was a little bit more intense, and in a good way too. I loved that, intensity as well. But yeah, I think field hockey was just a little bit more backyard style.
Yeah, I get that. I have a question for you. I just thought of this now. We touched on this a bit before you got on here, but you've obviously playing lacrosse, playing field hockey. You've probably played in a ton of big games. You've probably coached in a ton of big games. But where would you rank when in March Madness when our basketball team beat Al's team in that basketball March Madness at Carroll? Do you remember that Friday night?
Oh my God. You guys are bringing up so many memories for somebody who I couldn't even tell you what I did yesterday. That's actually hilarious. Another memory that just like totally forgot about.
Can I tell Seltzer? Apologies again. I forgot Jill was on your team.
I did too until about 5 minutes ago. I was thinking about. I remember she came up to me and she was complaining about playing time.
As any true athlete and competitor would.
I was like, you guys are splitting time, you and Jen Sibylars. I don't know what else to tell you. Like we're going 50-50 here. I don't know what else.
I was on the freshman basketball team at Carroll, Adam. Okay.
All right, listen.
You know what, Jill? I remember that you were rocking some mean bangs back then too.
I was.
As was probably 75% of that team, for being honest.
Me and Jen Sibylars, actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she absolutely did. My team, I had Caitlin Pearson and Jen Murray. You want to talk about two busts? As far as March Madness is concerned, I mean, look great as far as they won multiple championships in the Catholic League, but they couldn't eke out a win against Seltzer and Jill here.
Nah, yeah, you went with Borner and Jerisi Quick. You went with the big oaf.
Long Carey was on the team.
Yeah, but you went the Sixers 2020 bully ball, and you needed to go small ball.
Who else was on our team, Adam?
It was like the guys were like Malatak, who was Al's boy at the time. It hurt for him.
Oh yeah, Pat Malatak.
Sure. Gardner, Campetti. Who was the redheaded kid?
Sherm,
redheaded kid.
Was Sherm on your team?
Nah, he no. He transferred. He wasn't with his freshman
Dan
year.
Phillips.
Dan Phillips. Yes, Dan Phillips.
My Kairos roommate.
Was
Dan
it?
Phillips.
And then we had one other person. I just can't think of who it was.
Did you have Presk or did I have Presk?
Yeah, I had Presk. That was our last guy. That was our big man. Yeah, that was a random collection. I think we won 2 games.
That was really random. I can't believe we beat your team, actually.
You know what, Jill? Another time when Al bit off a little more than he could chew.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Seltzer, do you remember? So I remember I was 0 for 2 in that game, jacked up 2 ill-advised threes. Do you remember your shot, Adam? I'll give you your flowers here.
Yeah, I buried one right in Kyle Jerisi's face.
Kyle and I think Borner.
Yeah, I gave him a little straight out too.
You were like in the corner and you threw up a Hail Mary at the end of the half.
Yeah, but the problem was I was wearing a basketball jersey with no undershirt. I looked like an idiot because you videotaped that game and we watched it.
Guest videotaped it, and it'd be just like he'd be filming like the other bleachers. Like he was not paying any attention.
Oh, those are memories right there, man. I'll tell you what. But we got a little straight out. You have any other names that you want to mention here?
Yeah, we have to mention Eddie Griffin.
Yeah.
Eddie Griffin was a senior when we were freshmen. He was at Roman. He was the number 1 player in the nation. He went to Seton Hall, drafted 7th overall by the Nets in 2001. And my Eddie Griffin story is that before the game when they played Carroll, I think it was my first experience of a high school basketball game, period. So I go and I'm hearing all about this Eddie Griffin kid because at the time, like the internet's not what it is now. And I just you're hearing the buzz about this guy. You walk in, you see this massive man standing in the gym and you find out that he's actually a high school kid that's about to play your team. And I hear him and his dad having a conversation underneath the basket. And his dad said something to the effect of, "Don't give them everything tonight." I sit in the stands and I proceed to watch Eddie Griffin barely run past the jog and give us like 30 and 15 with ease. They blew us out. They smoked us. To his credit, Jordan Ingram did the best he could, but Jordan Ingram was not ready to defend the number 1 player in the nation as a freshman.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. Obviously, ended up having some major issues, with alcohol and stuff like that. And even just off the court, just attitude-wise, known for fighting and stuff like that. Definitely hurt his.
It wasn't the era of mental health. He definitely had mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
I have his jersey still, though. I have his Rockets jersey.
I have one other one, and this is completely cheating because this is not even a high school athlete, but we're really talking about like under the radar stuff. And Jill, you may not know this, but I'm a D2 fan or basketball guy because I graduated from Chestnut Hill, so I follow those guys pretty closely.
Mm-hmm.
But University of Sciences, which is not a basketball program, had this kid Garrett Kerr. And if you recognize the name, Tim Kerr was a Flyers player in the 80s. It's his son. He was the most dominant player I've ever seen on a basketball court relative to who he was playing. He was 6'4", and I just want to read off. And there was a quote there's a reason I put this in there, because there was a quote from his coach that I thought was tremendous. He was 3-time Player of the Year in the conference. He was 2-time National Player of the Year. He averaged 16 and 13 as a freshman, 21 and 13 as a sophomore, 25 and 13 as a junior, and 26 and 13 as a senior. Their team was pretty much trash. He carried them to 25 and 6, went to the NCAA tournament, and then the first round went for 40 and 14 in the first round. And then the second round had 33 points. But their coach had a line, and this is why I wanted to say this. He said, there are 2 plays in this world, Romeo and Juliet and get the ball to Garrett. Those were the two plays that he had. I thought that was outstanding. He was a 3-time All-American. He actually won Division II Player of the Year twice. There was just a motor on that kid that was unstoppable. And it was anytime he touched a rebound with his hands, he grabbed it. He was awesome. So I know it's not high school, but I had to shout him out because that was the most dominating performance I've ever seen on a basketball court from that guy.
You couldn't help yourself. Jill, did you have anybody that stood out, games or people, anything that you crossed paths with at any time, high school, college, that you haven't gotten a chance to name? I know you said Carolyn McKinnon, which that's a name I hadn't thought of in so long, but
I know. No, I think one of the cool things though is that there's so many like Division I coaches that are from this area. So I mean, Jen Cook. Do you guys remember Jen Cook? She's a Broomall girl. She grew up in Broomall. She is now the coach at Princeton.
Okay.
I played with her in high school for our club team, and she was one of the best players from this area too. So,
what's the hardest part about coaching?
The hardest part about coaching is just the unpredictability, just relying on 18-year-old, girls to kind of be with you. I think there's just so much that they go through these days, like the mental health that, you talked about it. I think that, college is hard now, the stuff outside of lacrosse, I think it impacts the lacrosse field so much. So I think that's probably the hardest part, is just, being there for them, like so much outside of just the sport. But, I think the day-to-day, the like high ups and downs of like every day of like, I think I've always taken over these like up and coming teams. So like the challenge of that, like the fight in that is really tough, and I think once you get to the other side and, we win championships, it's so fun to look back and be like, wow, it was like really hard, but it was really fun. But just going through like the day to day is tough.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I might have this not 100% accurate. Didn't you, when you coached at Drexel, which was your spot prior to Villanova, wasn't it their first tournament berth under your tutelage?
Yeah. We when I took over Drexel, I remember I wanted to get home so bad. I was living up in Rhode Island for 10 years, and the team that won the national championship was in the CAA, which is where Drexel, where Drexel was. And so I remember being like, oh my gosh, like I'm really putting myself right into the fire, going into the CAA with JMU, the team that won the national championship. But I was like, you know what, I really want to get home. I'm going to go for it. At that time, Drexel was ranked 7th out of the 8 CAA schools. So it was like, okay, we really are going for this. And then 3 years later, we were in the championship game against JMU. We lost by 1 in that game. And it was like, overall, I mean, that was the year that I ended up like leaving, but overall that was like the most satisfying experience, just being like, I was so worried to come into the CAA to play against JMU, to prove myself, but then, and being in that game against them was just like so satisfying. Like, oh, I can't believe that this ended up happening. I can't believe we're here,
Yeah.
What years were you at Drexel?
I was at Drexel from 2000. This is my 3rd year at Villanova now. So from 2021. So what is it? 2019 to 2021.
Okay. So just a short period of time in there.
Yeah.
But that's like the dream as a coach to come home. You go, you know what I mean. You go up against Goliath. You take the team that was like you said, 7th out of 8th, and you bring them up to the point where they're getting an at-large bid in the tournament. Like that's pretty incredible stuff.
I know, it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, again, I mentioned having coached baseball. I think the hardest thing for me, Jill, is it's when you're on the field, you can control so much of what's going on. And when you're coaching, you may have to make 1 or 2 key decisions in the course of a game. And those decisions you're making, you can have all the facts and information, but you're putting your faith in another human. And again, you could do all the things to get them prepared, to, have yourself to make the information to make the right decision, but it's out of your hands at that point. And that's really the most nerve-wracking piece of it is when you're on the field, you control everything, right? You're out there, and there's little factors here and there, but to just have to make a decision and stick with it, it's tough. It's nerve-wracking. It's more nerve-wracking to be on that side of it for me than it was to play.
I know. Oh, yeah. It's definitely more nerve-wracking being on this side of it, because when you're playing, you're just worrying about yourself, but when you're coaching, there's just so many things that you're thinking about. But it's also my favorite part about it. Like, again, I love like the chess piece. I love that you impact the game so much more that you can do when you're an individual player, So, but you're putting your faith in them to make the play, and when it works out, you look great. And when it doesn't,
so
it's on you.
Jill, speaking of looking great, Adam, I'm going to transition here for maybe the last 5 minutes and talk a little 20th year reunion. Jill,
love it.
Did anybody
wait, should I leave the chat since I wasn't invited or no?
You're jumping the gun.
You were invited.
You're jumping the gun here. All right. Jill, first of all, thank you for putting that together. Because that ended up being a very fun event, and the turnout was amazing. I think there had to have been 100 people there.
There had to have been. It was really fun.
And a class that graduated only about 215, 220, something like that. Did you run into anybody that had an interesting story or you know what I mean? Something that you hadn't heard because you haven't seen them in 20 years that you can recall?
Oh, gosh.
I know I'm really putting you on the spot with this, so you can think about it for a little bit.
You are. Honestly, I don't think there was
about
many surprises to me. Did you feel like there was many surprises? Like, to me, I felt like I just went back and I think everyone who was who they were in high school.
Yeah.
Did you think there was any surprises?
No, I agree. I thought that conversations that I had with people that I haven't had conversations with in 20 years, it didn't seem like 20 years had passed. It seemed like a period had passed and we were just in the hallway.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just
totally.
Instead of the conversation being about like lunch or whatever, or a game coming up, or it was about like kids and family and what are you doing now and career and this and that. But
I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You're just talking about the same thing. You're like the same kid you were in high school.
You know what I thought though? I said to Casey when I got home, I said it felt like speed dating.
Did it? I know.
Like speed dating because you only could talk to someone for so long because you wanted to talk to so many people.
You're right. I thought it felt like so natural. I kind of felt like it felt like a high school party was just at a pub, I felt like I was just right back in high school.
Jill, how many people do you talk to regularly from Carroll?
Not too many, maybe like on the regular 10.
That's a lot.
12. I mean, I guess I'm my brother-in-law talk to the most, Jack Corcoran, shout out. But maybe like 10 or 12 regularly. What about you guys?
That's a good amount. Probably just Al and Chris for me, I think.
Not many. I think maybe just Adam, Chris, Jack, and Ryan Kelly. Yeah, I apologize anybody that's listening that I talked to that I didn't name just now, but those are the really the 4 I can think of from Carroll.
Yeah, I play fantasy football with Carugno, but that's not anybody I talk to outside of that.
Jill, was there anyone that didn't show up that you wish would have been able to make it? That you can
I'll close I'll close out.
Well, Adam. Then you know who else? Chris Moshe.
Oh, okay.
That's a shout out.
Did you? I loved Chris Moshe. I reached out to him when we were planning, and he was so bummed that he couldn't make it. But I loved him in high school.
Him and Jen Murray had a little thing there, didn't they? Didn't they have a little fling in high school?
You're sharper with that stuff than I am.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. I'll have to ask her now. I have her number now, so I'll have to
Jen
ask.
Murray?
I have to ask her.
But
Jim Murray's kid's going to college next year, I think.
yeah, he's 17.
Jesus
I
Christ.
know.
He picked her up from the event.
What about you?
So for me, it's easy. Almost everyone that I talk to, and now I'm going to apologize to Adam, and I'm going to apologize to Chris. Almost everyone I talk to asks me about Quiggs. Yo, where's Quiggs? Where's he at? Why isn't he here? I'm like, you kidding me? He's not going to a Carroll reunion. He was planted in South Philly, where he's been for the last 20 years.
I would have loved to see him.
It would have been nice, and you wouldn't have been able to miss him. His big 6'6" ass.
I know. Do you see him a lot?
No, but we talk almost all the time through text. But I haven't. You know what? That's a lie. I saw him 2 summers ago, just randomly in Wildwood, but like it wasn't set up. I just saw him on the boardwalk.
Well, biggest surprise had to have been Kashif.
Oh my God, blew my socks off when I saw him.
Didn't know he was coming. He came in. You can't miss him. He looks exactly the same.
Yep.
And what a cool guy.
So cool, effortlessly cool. And Jill, in the picture, the one group picture that the DJ took, if you notice, him and I are next to each other on the far end of the picture. And the whole time we're standing there, he's standing next to me, and he just keeps saying in my ear, yo, Al, we're not in the picture. We're not going to make the picture. We're too far on the outside. We're not going to make it. Yo, Al, we're still not in the picture. He just kept saying it over and over.
That's so funny. It's crazy. It's been 20 years.
We made it.
Yeah.
20 years is a long time.
Long time. It's a long time. Jill, what's it feel like knowing you're going to have to plan this thing again in whether we do 5 or 10 years?
I told you I am passing the baton to you.
Listen.
What does it feel like to you to plan it?
When you plan it, when you come out on top and there's nowhere to go anymore, that's the time to jump off, Jill. So God bless you. If you did it, if it was a good event, get out.
It was good. It worked. You know, I there's a couple people I did pass the baton to a couple people. Carly Zampino said she would also do it.
Was she there? I didn't see her.
She was there.
Okay.
She was there. She was great. It's fun to talk to her.
And you collaborated on this with like Patty Adams also, right?
Patty Adams, yeah. She was really big help. Marin, Kara.
Okay.
So,
Now, but like with you, Marin, Kara, do you kind of still like talk to the same group though? Like, did that really get your reach out there?
That didn't. No, that's why we needed Patty.
Right. That's understandable. Because Jack was no help.
Yeah, I know Jack. Actually, Jack got you.
Jack texted me.
Ryan Kelly.
Yeah.
He got Ryan McGoldrick and those guys. So
That's true.
he did good. He did good.
Let's take this offline because I'm sure we lost a lot of listeners who didn't go to Carroll class in 2003, but I still want to talk more about this. But let's drop that beat and then we'll take this offline.